Welcome in everyone to Girl, How'd You Get That Gig? Episode number 1. We're very, very excited to launch this project. I'm Amy G for my co-host Celeste Gehring. We are so excited to welcome in today's guest, Sarina Morales. Now, she's been a host and reporter for Bally Sports. She's also a regular guest for MSG Networks on their betting shows and creates social media content for the NFL's Latino channel El Snap. In her free time, she hosts a music podcast questioning the questionable lyrics of pop culture music. Sarina, thank you so much for being here today.
Let's go. I'll snap this sucker. I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I love the name of that. It just makes you do it. Yeah.
Love it. Well, Sarina, I already knew all this about you since I work with you.
Yes.
But tell our audience what your role is at Bally Sports and what you do on the daily.
So I feel like I wear a lot of hats, even though I'm technically host and reporter. Depending on the day, I am either hosting a show. I've covered boxing, where I hosted boxing events, which prior to that, I didn't cover boxing. So there's a lot of research, reading, cries for help, and a lot of asking questions. But really, either I'm facilitating a conversation that I am learning about and know a little bit about, and I'm asking experts, or I am covering a sport like the NFL or MLB, currently Major League Baseball, and I'm sort of acting as the expert as a reporter for Bally. So right now, I'm covering a handful of MLB teams that Bally has, and I do a regular video for Bally every day that uses half of my brain, or majority of my brain. How do I sell this? So I do videos that have Taylor Swift lyrics in them, or make a reference to Dodgeball the movie. And it's been fun. And I try and just, have fun and talk about sports, because that's why people watch sports, is to have fun. So.
Absolutely. Right. It's the entertainment side of everything.
Correct.
So it's interesting you say you wear a lot of hats. I feel like as I've evolved, and Celeste, you can chime in on this too, of course, as I've evolved in my career, it's gotten easier to wear more hats. When I first started, it was the Giants, and that's all I had time to really concentrate on, because I felt like the breadth of the topic was so large that I didn't I used to cover the Raiders too as a producer, and I stopped doing that once the Giants started to go on a run. So what's the key for you? Two-part question. The key for you to kind of keep it all straight, but also how important it is in today's, time frame to be a true utility player for all different kinds of sports. And I always feel like the young ones trying to break in, that's a really important thing, is that you could cover any sport if you needed to.
Yeah. So the first question, I do not live without being organized. Things are written down in multiple platforms, handwritten, digitally written, all of it. So there's that, having a schedule so that you don't and also making sure that you take time away from the sports world so that you have time to heal, and you don't get stuck in this sort of hamster wheel, which is what I see in a lot of sports news, TV, digital. As a reporter myself, I get sick of seeing, oh, they're going to do this, and then they're going to be like, hey, here I am at the field. And to me, I'm just like, oh my God, I've been there, done that. I've seen it. So my strength is as a utility player, and wearing multiple hats, is being organized, but also stepping away a lot. I make sure that I put on HGTV, TLC, the E Network, National Geographic. I listen to classical music when I'm driving in my car. I talk to a lot of different people on a regular basis. I make sure I check in on people a lot. Plants, you need to have sort of a feng shui in your head so that you can execute the job properly. And so I think, me being tapped into multiple places has helped my creativity, and being a storyteller, that helps me kind of balance out with what you see on a daily basis of people who are, again, here's a stat sheet, here's some information, you make your argument. Right now, it's all about who has the best argument, who is the the biggest cojones to talk about, who won the game and why LeBron's going to play another season and why he shouldn't retire ever. And those things are great. It's good for conversation, but I really think that there's so many opportunities, especially when you mentioned so many platforms that it's just the world is it's limitless. You can go forever and do different things and make people laugh, or it could be more focused on, throwbacks or stats and info, or, long form, short form. You got the world's your oyster. So for me, it's really about staying organized and actually leaving sports and making an effort to do that.
Yeah, concentrated effort. Yeah.
Yeah, in order to be a better sports reporter.
I think that's so important. Yeah, to have a break. Yeah.
Totally. And, Sarina, one of your jobs was for National Geographic doing their social media. Can you talk a little bit about, how important that was and, social media, how important it is today?
Yeah, I thought when I took the job at National Geographic, I was never going to work in sports again. I was like, well, that's it. There goes any dream of me being a sports reporter. And it ended up being my launching pad to being a actual sports reporter, where people look at me and they're like, oh yeah, Sarina Morales, totally. Yeah, we know her. Okay. Sports Center hired me from National Geographic. But if you look again, we separate these two brands. I'm going to call them brands. That's what they are. Like, ESPN is the top place people go to on a regular basis to get their sports news. You want to go to, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, whichever you choose, that's where you're going to get your news, right? And then you have for animals and nature and whatever, it's National Geographic. Like, you don't got another one. Like, that's it. Animal Planet, they dabble. This National Geographic, if you're looking for like the most factual place. So to me, I kind of saw National Geographic and ESPN as sort of equal partners. They're just in their own lanes. And that's how I applied to the National Geographic job. Because I was like, look, I'm trying to be a sports reporter, but I understand this is a lane and I can learn this lane. This is going to be like me learning a new sport, which I can do. I have the creativity to write quickly. I can think about, headlines. I can write headlines, which are basically like tweets to, whatever story that we're trying to push at the moment. And so, yeah, I just had so much fun because the guy who hired me was a sports fan. And so he was like, I am fascinated at how you are going to make National Geographic a thing. And I was like, yeah, we're going to have some fun. We'll figure this out. And the best thing about this guy, Hayes, he was like, well, here's what you're going to do. Because you're not, again, at the time, this was like 2014, 2015, this was only like 10 years ago. He was this like, you're not a social media master. I don't need you to be. You're going to learn that. It's really about marketing 101. He told me about marketing 101, brought me into his office. He's like, here's some basic things I need you to understand about strategy, about the whys, all this stuff. And I was like, okay, got it. Just had my little notes here. And he goes, you want to be on camera? Go ahead. Figure out how to be on camera on National Geographic. You want to write? The world is your oyster. You're going to be writing all the time for tweets and posts and thinking about, long form storytelling, yada, yada. And 3, you're a creative. So like, think about how we're promoting our shows and things like that in a creative way. I'm like, okay, we got this. So all those things that I mentioned apply directly to being a sports reporter on ESPN, right? Like, you got to have your facts straight. Like, you can't ruin the brand. Like, you got to make sure you're still doing that. But then the creativity, how you're going to toss to a story, the questions you're going to ask, things like that, the writing. So I kind of just went into the same lanes. And so even though I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never working in sports again, it was the head of Sports Center at the time, Rob King, who found me because he was such a fan of National Geographic content. And he followed me on LinkedIn. He was like, are you the person doing all this? And I was like, yeah, it's just me and like a handful of other people. And he was like, this is genius. Like, I'm going to bring you up for an interview. And that's where my starting, my career in sports began, from National Geographic.
So there's so many things happening with everything that you just said it's so important for our audience to really dissect that, right? Like, you don't fit into a box, and that made you stronger and more hireable because of all the different things that you learned how to do. But you were able to somehow parallel these two worlds people would think are so different and start to see yourself, being able to utilize this skill set over here as well. Because there is a template. I think even when you're changing different sports, there's still kind of a template to how you're going to approach a game, some questions you're going to ask players. Really, they're kind of universal, right, for different situations in sports. But I love all of that, and especially the marketing side, because today with social media, you have to market yourself as well. Whether you're at ESPN or the local ABC affiliate, right? You have to learn how to use social media to your advantage. And I think you have mastered it. I don't think that guy was right.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the best thing about marketing for reporters is showing their authenticity. Like, you want to be the same person that's on TV, that's in your Instagram, that's on your Twitter. Like, you don't want to be, I'm going to throw out Skip Bayless. Like, Skip Bayless doesn't act like this all the time. That'd be exhausting. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I know Skip Bayless because I worked with him at ESPN. And he was like, oh, hey, how's it going? He's quiet. Then he turns it on for, like, to me, and that's his persona, like Stephen A. Smith, very similar. Yeah, it's a character. Yeah. But like, for me, I want people to trust me. So on a regular basis, if I'm talking about my dog, my husband, a baseball game, that I'm allergic to gluten, you are going to hear me with the same voice, the same tone that I would in a sports report or in my daily life. And I think that's where like marketing for journalists has really helped with social media.
I think so too.
Yeah, and we have to stop right here because you have to talk about your dog's name and how the dog got its name.
Aww. Biggie is a very small dog.
Biggie Smalls.
Biggie Smalls, thank you. Yeah, she's roughly 12 pounds. COVID dogs, obviously. Where else would you get a dog from? And I was covering the Rams, and I couldn't be around the Rams team, anything, but I couldn't catch COVID, so I was just, hibernating in my house. My husband was in New York taking care of his mom, and I was like, bro, I need a dog. So we got a dog. And I thought she would grow like a little bit, and I was calling her Buddy for a while, and then I was like, oh, maybe if I call her Biggie, she'll grow more. And then, I'm from New York, so Biggie Smalls, perfect. It all worked out. And she's got a big personality. She's just very small. Very, very small. But I do have a good Instagram for her. It's your dog, Biggie. And it's just Biggie Smalls quotes with her photos, and
those are my favorite ones to follow.
Enjoyable.
They're my favorite ones. They always make me laugh. They always make me happy. So you mentioned New York, which is where you're from. Tell us a little bit about growing up in the Bronx and your connection to sports. I know you were an athlete, and like maybe how your foundation kind of led you into what you are doing today from when you were a kid.
Well, it's funny because like when you don't have a lot, you don't expect a lot. Like no one expected me and my family to ever make it to Sports Center. I promise you that. I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment. It was 4 of us in the Bronx. I mean, this building on the Grand Concourse was not safe. I mean, I grew up in but then you look at me now and I live in a beautiful apartment. I live in the Valley, and my mom jokes. My husband's also from the Bronx. We grew up in we went to the same high school. So, we're both sort of like, what are 2 people from the Bronx doing living in the Valley? Like, what is happening here? But yeah, I mean, I was so grateful for the little things. And it was 4 of us. We had bunk beds in the bedroom. My parents slept on the couch in the living room. And we came from very humble beginnings. And it was great because all I wanted to do, there was one TV in the house. I was like, I just want to watch TV. I don't where are you going to go? There was not a lot of places. If you're going to the park, it was like a whole thing. You had to go to the park. If you're going to go to the beach, it was a thing. So a lot of times it was like reading a book or playing with your Legos or, a doll or something. And I was like, I'm trying to watch TV right now. And my dad would watch the afternoon Yankee games on the weekend, right after Saturday morning cartoons. So I somehow finagled my way onto the couch one day, and I was like, I'm just going to stay here and see who says what to me. And he's like, oh, you're watching Yankee games? And I was like, yeah, oh yeah.
You're a Yankee fan now?
Oh yeah. I mean, he was like, when did you become? And I was like a ripe, 5-6-year-old, but I had the smarts to go, I'm going to sit here on this
I wanna
couch
watch
until
TV.
someone kicks me out. I just wanted to watch the TV. It didn't matter what was on it. I just wanted to watch it. And so my dad just ended up keeping me and watching games with me. And then I was like, oh, what's that white thing? Oh, it's a base. Oh, who's that dude with the mustache? Oh, that's Don Mattingly. And I ended up just learning so much about the Yankees that then it became, well, this little girl needs to play baseball. So he put me on a baseball team. And from there, it's manifested to, signed footballs on my wall, like a Mariano Rivera baseball sign. Like, I mean, I love the Yankees, obviously, because of the Bronx and where I'm from, but I love baseball. I'm afraid Celeste knows, coach, we call him coach. Well, my husband's a baseball coach. Like, I love the game. I love, I got into sports, but all just because I was stuck in a 1-bedroom apartment. Like, there was nothing else to do. And I was like, well, I'm gonna entertain myself and I'm gonna watch Yankee games.
And you have the greatest little card of yourself as a little girl, that little baseball card. I love that card. We'll have to put it up and show everybody. But Sarina, as you were sitting as a little girl on that couch watching the Yankees and deciding you were going to play baseball, were there a lot of other young girls playing baseball? Were they playing softball and jumping over? What was that rapport like with, the boys?
At the time, because I was so young, I was the only girl playing baseball, but there was no gender identity. It wasn't like, they were just like, oh, that's a girl. But I'm 7, 8 years old. No one's really questioning. I mean, they were like, do you wear a cup? And I'm like, no, what's a cup? Like, there were these little nuances, but it was so innocent. And it wasn't until I hit high school and I
wear a bra.
Baseball. Yeah, like I didn't have a bra at that time when they're asking me these questions until, then I got to high school and I played in a league. This was actually my college essay. So I don't even think you know this, but I wrote to Syracuse University. My college essay was about playing baseball in the Bronx as a teenager in high school. And I had tried out for this team. I lied. I told the coach that I played first base. I was an outfielder at the time, but I saw that the first baseman had gotten hurt. I used to sit at Allerton Park in the Bronx every day after my softball practice and go over to the baseball field and just sit and see if anyone needed a glove. I just would sit there. Anyone want to catch? And so it got to the point where the coach was like, do you want to play, child? And I was like, do you need someone? He was like, what position do you play? I was like, first. I play first. Like, I never played first base. I didn't have a glove for it. I was an outfielder mid. Thing was the size of like my arm. And so I lied to this coach and he was like, come tomorrow and try out for my team. And I was like, okay, sounds good. What time? I'll be here. Like, no big deal. So I run home. I call my dad. He's like, what do you need? I'm like, bah, I need a first base mitt right now. He's like, let's go to Modell's. So my dad was like very supportive. And I was like, let's go. Got to go to Mo's. So we go to Modell's, which doesn't exist anymore. It's funny. And he gets me a first base mitt. But you got to break in leather. Like, you can't be just like throwing this thing on.
Hard to pick it when you haven't broken it. Yeah.
The thing was in the oven. It was under my bed. There was so much oil on this thing. It was like my whole body was shiny. I slept with it. Like, it was insane. Still not broken into the level that I needed. So I show up the next day and I'm like, there's no way I'm trying out for this baseball team with a glove that's not broken in. So I said, oh, hey, I don't have my first base mitt. It's at my mom's house. Like, I just lied, even though it was sitting on the bottom of my bag. And he was like, that's fine. Just use your glove. I just want to see what you can do. And I ended up trying out for this team and royally embarrassed myself for my standards. Like, I was stepping on the base wrong. I'm using a outfielder's mitt to catch infielder. Like, a shortstop is throwing a ball to me at 90 miles per hour. And that is not the right webbing for that. So anyway, but I was able to catch. I was able to show them, like, I know what the hell I'm doing enough that he took me for the team. I make this team. I play the first game of the season, and I'm the only girl in this league. And I get up to bat for the first time, and every single boy, I'm calling them boys, every single person sat on the field and protested because they were like, you are not going to play against us in this league. And they sat down on the field, and the guy who was the pitcher threw underhand to me because they really wanted me out of this league. And the only team that supported me at the time was my team. And they didn't even want me on the team. They were like, we don't want to go through this. We're not here for her to like have her sacrificial like protest moment. Like, we're just trying to play baseball and we suck. And now it looks worse because we have a girl on the team. It was really tough. Those guys on the team are still my friends to this day. And it built, you know, for me, I cried the entire night. Like, that's it. I'm hanging up my cleats. But then I was also like, I can't just like leave after this embarrassment. I have to show up the next day. Like, I have to show my face. So I did. And that was my college essay of like, I'm not going to be the best. I'm not going to be, you know, I don't have the credentials to be at Newhouse. I didn't work at a high school newspaper or TV show. I don't have the money. I didn't come from any of that. But I will show up the next day and I will play ball. And I got into
You're a grinder.
Yeah.
You're a grinder. Don't you think too, like that seems to me like to matter so much more as well as I reflect back on my career is being accountable, being responsible, you know, showing up. I always felt like when I first started covering the Giants, the best thing I could do was get there before them and leave after them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Regarding work ethic.
And it's your reputation too. Like Celeste knows, like, I mean, we hustled at World Baseball Classic, and that was like a sport that, again, like professionally speaking, I came from like the NFL world. And so even though I have a huge background knowledge on baseball, it wasn't like I had the deep connections, you know, covering it for years. So it was like, I need to show up. I need to be here. I need to like talk to people. I need to make myself uncomfortable, but I need to also have Celeste trust me that like I'm gonna make you look good. I'm gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure this out together. And it was so fun though, because you like learn and you trust each other. But again, like you ask anyone in these streets, like my reputation is good because I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna show up.
Well, we know Celeste is gonna make you look good for sure.
Oh yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And let me tell you though, these were 18-hour days, Amy, at the World Baseball Classic. It wasn't just showing up and leaving. It was showing up and sleeping there basically.
Pregnant,
yes.
Pregnant.
Gonna have a baby.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I mean, the great thing with Sarina is when she showed up all the time, and Amy, you know this, you know, the players notice that, right? Yeah. They notice the reporters that are there and who aren't just showing up for the big moments. They would come over and hug her, or they would notice after a while, you know, she'd be speaking Spanish to them. Sometimes she'd be interviewing them in English, and she had that rapport developed with them. And that's one of the things that I think, you know, both you and Sarina do such a great job of, is just, again, having that rapport with the athletes means so much, because the athletes understand who's there and who's not. And, you know, I think Sarina, you know, with you, do you feel like when you're speaking Spanish to the players culturally, that is a better connection for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's just like familia, huge. You know, at the end of the day, like, even if you like, I'm Spanglish, like, it's funny because my husband, he's Dominican, he speaks Spanish like very easily, conversationally. He's not grammatically correct, but you know, I grew up where my dad was like, you need to speak English, because I was made fun of as a kid for only speaking Spanish. So there was like an effort for me, like, you need to learn English, girlfriend. And I spoke it to my grandparents, but it's not like conversationally I can get by. And that's what I use. Like, again, like, hey, like, let me speak to you in Spanish, get your attention. And then like, por favor, puedo hablar en inglés para esta entrevista? Like, can we just talk in English for this interview? And even that, some guys are like, okay, will never forget Gary Sanchez. Bless him, who's on his third baseball team this season, and now he's killing it with the Padres. But he was like, oh, I don't feel comfortable doing it in English. Let me go find somebody. And I was like, I lost him. There's no way he's coming back. And he found an interpreter to do the interview with me. I think it was like 30 minutes later. And I was like, there's no way he's doing this with me. And he came back. So, I mean, sometimes it's really just like, you know, it's also like looking out for your people a little bit. You know, they don't get that. And so I also just like always tell people, no matter if your last name is Morales or Smith, learn Spanish a little bit to meet them at their level, because then they'll meet you at your level. I think it's like a sign of respect too.
Well, I know too,
Absolutely.
with my last name being Gutierrez, there's like this expectation that I'm going to walk in
Yeah.
and be a Latina, and I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
married a Latino.
Yeah.
And so I try really hard to use what
Yeah.
I know to like introduce myself to a Latin player and just kind of start there. Like,
Mhm.
hola, mi nombre es Amy. Necesito
Yeah.
practicar mi español. Like I tell them
Yeah.
right away, like, I need to practice this. Will you
Yep.
help me with this? And
Yeah.
then a barrier is broken down that they
Yes.
know you're trying. And I feel like when you travel, if you just try to speak the
It'll,
language of the country you're in, they're going to be so much, it's respect, right?
yes.
And so anyway, I think that's huge. But I want to ask you about college.
Mm.
I'm really curious, given what you said about the beginning of in the beginning of the interview, your humble beginnings.
Yeah.
Um, and if college was on your radar as a kid, when it became something that was on your radar, I mean, you went to Syracuse. This is no
Yeah.
joke, girl. So how did all that, uh, how did that play out, and how
It
much did
was
you love Syracuse?
awful.
It was awful.
I had a terrible college
Oh
experience.
no.
Oh,
Oh
no,
no. We
it
don't
was
have to dive
great.
into it.
No, it was great. And I never really shy away from it. It was more, there was definitely a community of New York Latinos that I was friends with for my comfort. But again, I feel like the best strength is that I constantly stay uncomfortable and I figure things out. But like I was not ready for a Newhouse. I had like again, Newhouse is like one of the best journalism schools in the country. I didn't get in right away. They put me on a wait list and then I ended up going and transferring in my freshman year of college, which you needed like an even better GPA, like my SAT scores. I had no idea I was dyslexic. I learned that when I was at ESPN. So I went through my entire life of not having, certain levels of like expertise or, supportive
Yeah.
technological gains in high school, whatever. So I get to Syracuse where people are, at the top of their game. And I'm like, oh, this is uncomfortable. And when I get to Newhouse, everyone had written for their newspaper. Everyone had been on their TV station in high school. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. My college professor actually told me, she was like, you don't have the writing level for a college student, which was insulting because I also had English classes that I was getting A's in Syracuse. It was just not, I wasn't writing in Newhouse way. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like I've called out Newhouse before because I felt like there were times of racism. Like I had an accent, I had to lose my accent. I sounded, very much like a stereotypical Jennifer Lopez or something where it was like, I would go Sarina Morales and CC News. And they were
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not how you say news. It's news, not news. And I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I just stood out like a sore thumb. It was pretty painful. I cried a lot. But again, I showed up. That's all I know how to do. So I went through this. My parents were like, this is way too expensive. I don't think you should go there. My parents both went to CUNY schools, like City College, Lehman College, actually, they both went to in the Bronx. And I was sort of like, I wanted to play a sport. So I really was looking at Syracuse for softball at that time. I popped my hamstring training way too hard. I practiced with the baseball team at my high school, and then I was playing softball for the high school, and I just went way too hard. And again, I didn't have strength and conditioning. I didn't understand hydration. I didn't understand what I should be eating on a regular basis. There was no, like I'm drinking Nutriment to try and gain weight because I was too tiny. It was just thinking back, I'm like, I had no resources or people to look to.
Mm-hmm.
So I overdid it, popped my hamstring, missed the opportunity to play at Syracuse. And I was like, well, what do I do now? And that's where like Newhouse, they were like, you should be a sports reporter. But I mean, there were multiple times where my parents were like, this is too expensive. You need to leave. And I was like, I'll just take out another loan. I'll figure it out. I cannot leave. This is where people do this stuff. Like I didn't even understand the breadth of the importance of Newhouse until I was in the classes. And now I'm like, oh no, this is where people be going. Like I need to do. So it was a mind awakening for myself, but
Sure.
also
Difficult.
painful, uncomfortable. I was often ridiculed. I often felt really stupid. And thankfully, it all worked out. But looking back, I mean, Syracuse was not easy for me at all.
I have to ask about, your dialect then, because I think
Mhm.
this is really important information and advice for anyone trying to get into really any industry, but this is a public platform that you're on. You're talking about people commenting on how you speak. What advice do you give to anyone wanting to break into the sports industry about taking criticism and trying to reframe it into constructive criticism and not taking it personally for your background, your culture? I mean, it could go sideways quick.
Yeah. For me, it was survival mode. But you're right. People don't take criticism well. It wasn't easy for me either. Now it's a lot easier because I was so ridiculed back. I was like learning how to do this. But I would say just keep an open mind. Like I was like, I guess I need to do this. And, looking back, losing my accent, it still comes out when I have a nice glass of wine or something like that. So it's not like I lost it completely, but it's really assimilation is what Syracuse had me do. Like, hey, this is what we know how to teach students. And if you're going to go to Albuquerque, I don't think you're going to get a job sounding like, Rosie Perez right now. So here's what we're going to do to help you. And hey, I mean, I assimilated big time where I went back to the Bronx and no one recognized my voice when I would call them. They're like, who is this? So it's a balance. I think now people are way more open-minded to different dialects, to voices, to all sorts of things. But, at the time I sounded like a chipmunk. My voice was like very high pitched. And I also had this like crazy New Yorican accent. Yeah. So yeah, the criticism, it's really, you have to learn to take it, because if you don't have a foundation for learning criticism now for young people getting into the business, you're not going to survive. It's all about changing, shifting, being a utility player and figuring it out, and also learning from people who clearly have more, expertise than you do if they're trying to criticize you or give you feedback for something.
You hope they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I don't, but yes, sometimes.
But Sarina, you and I have talked about this a lot, about being a role model for the Latin community, right? You being Puerto Rican. I know I personally have learned so much, when we've gone to Miami and tried mofongo and all these different things, learned about reggaeton.
But Celeste,
right?
She
I'm learning. I can dance.
She's a gamer.
But in all seriousness, Sarina, I love that you talked about being dyslexic. And I think, especially coming from the Latin community, talking about things that you need help to overcome is so important. Yeah. For our audience, how do you talk to them about, showing that vulnerability, showing those problems so people can really come and give you the help that you need?
Yeah. Because I did not. Like, I found out I was dyslexic when I got to ESPN, and I stayed really quiet about it. I mean, I stayed quiet about it my entire life. I just thought I was stupid and I couldn't process reading quickly. My sister was like a spelling bee champ. My sister would read a book in a day. I was passing every class but spelling. My mom could have figured out the kid's dyslexic. She writes her E's backwards and things like that. But
mom didn't have resources either.
No one did. Right. No one did.
Yeah.
I mean, even Jonathan, my husband, he's dyslexic, and we never, and his level is in the red. Like, I'm in orange, yellow. And I've also taught myself how to read for myself to get through. I can still get information, but what I lean on is my skill sets that I had to build. If someone's blind, their hearing gets better, right? If they lose, their ability to walk, then they have stronger arms. The body adjusts. For me, it was all listening. I better get this information when it's told to me the first time, so that I don't have to read it later on and take 5 hours to read something that took someone 20 minutes. And yeah, it really helped me to be more vulnerable, because then the expectation was she could still do the job. But you know what? It's funny, Celeste, you asked that, because again, I didn't say anything at ESPN because I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want people to think, oh, she can't do the job because she's dyslexic. So I never told anyone but 2 stats and research guys that worked on SportsCenter AM with me, because it would give me either a stat and write it out. And the way that they would word it, I would read it out loud to myself really quickly, because we're going live on TV. And I would go, can I change this word here? Because as soon as you change one word in a stat, it means something completely different.
Yes.
So I would sit with them and go, yo, I need to ask you, can I reword this please quickly? They knew not to write like Super Bowl XLVY. And I'm like, please don't, just put 56. That's so mean.
Listen, you don't have to be dyslexic to not know how to read Roman numbers.
And even like shot sheets, like even like plays, like I would circle like big things and write like a stat. Like I changed the way that I was doing things because I was just like, I would memorize my hits before we would go live. There was one time the teleprompter was so effed up and I had memorized my hit so well before I went live on TV because it was like a 20-second hit to toss to a video. Like they're watching this teleprompter just go crazy and I'm live, the light is red and I'm like, Sarina Morales back on SportsCenter AM. You know, you think about Marshawn Lynch and whatever the story was, and I just went because I remembered it. So like my memory is way better because I'm dyslexic because I had to. Right. And so everyone else is looking at me in studio like, how is she amazing? What is she doing? How is she reading this? Like I was all of a sudden a super reader, but I didn't tell anybody. I just told the people that I needed to, like, yo, real quick, can you, or like Giannis Antetokounmpo's name when he came out in the NBA, I was like, holy cow, don't write Antetokounmpo, just write Giannis. I'll remember. It's okay. Like I would make a joke about it, but I didn't say it until I think I had proven to other people, hey, I can do the job. But I think now, again, there's a lot more support out there for people who have, you know, a disability or a learning, you know, curve that makes it a lot easier. But it is really hard. I did not tell people for a very long time.
I am so glad that you brought that up, Celeste, and that you're talking about it because I just think it's so, as a instructor at Sonoma State, and Celeste teaches as well, it's, you want your students to always feel empowered in any way you can, and so much of that is that they learn differently. So that's how I've always looked at like anything you know, labeled a learning disability. No, you just learn differently, and nobody should be ashamed about that. But I also love in what you said that you were so resourceful in finding out what your strengths were to get around this issue, right? And finding somebody at work that will help you is huge. That's what Celeste was for me. Like I didn't know anybody when I started, and so I found her. And you find that person that you trust. I mean, that's just a huge lesson, I think, for anybody listening. Like find that person that's going to help you be the best version of you.
Yes, absolutely.
I know. Okay, we don't have a whole lot more time. And there's so many things to ask you, but I do want to get into, just because this is Girl, How'd You Get That Gig? We really want to focus on the empowerment of women in sports. We don't want to exclude men. We just want to concentrate on women. So with that said, Celeste and I we talked about this forever as to why women aren't more supportive of women in our industry. And we never had that issue, but I've certainly had it with other people. And just your take on that, like, where do you think we've come? Where do you think we need to go? And any personal experiences you've had, good or bad?
The good and the bad. Look, women, I think, are more supportive because they didn't have support. And so either you learned from the fact that you didn't have support and you either identified that and was like, I'm going to support other people because I did not have that. And look, I've had a lot of women who have treated me absolutely terribly. And I had a trust issue with women at times in my life because they thought I was, you know, posing as a threat to their job. But then I looked at it and I was like, well, we only get one job, right? Like if you're a sports anchor, well, they have to have a man, can't have an all female crew. Like I joke all the time. I'm like, I mean, you look at the Fox NFL Sunday roster, there's like 8 seats at that round table and they're all men and they're all old. And I'm all like, boring. Like you're not even like, let's try and juice it up a little bit. And so, you know, I think that it was the industry created women to be against women because it was one job that, you know, all the women were fighting for. Versus if you're a man and you're applying for a job, wow, like you got a bunch of other job opportunities. And so that's analysts. Sure. Yes. Right. That's where it started. Like, I think that's where it started. It's gotten a lot better. And again, I'm super grateful for women that do support me and I can support back like a Celeste. because again, it hasn't happened. I haven't had it a lot, but I've been able to either identify, this is why this woman is treating me like this. She has clearly been treated terribly in the past, and she finds this to be threatening. So I'm going to leave it alone and not take it personally. And that's definitely something for women to be aware of. Just either identify that you've been hurt so that you do not repeat that or become triggered by things. But also, you know, I feel like really excited. Like there's a woman I mentor right now, Jeanette. She's at ESPN in Miami, and she also has like a marketing job that she does her 9 to 5, makes her money, and then she does, you know, some radio work on the side. And that's where she's like, I want to do this now full time. I want to be in sports. And like, she's a Dominican, a Latina that she takes the time, she writes notes down, she asks me questions, and she's so thankful for my time. And it just makes me feel good. Like I'm helping out another woman, and I can like give that energy to somebody. And it's like so refreshing. So, you know, anytime I can help out like a Celeste or someone else, like it just makes me feel so good, because really, you know, you could be treated really badly, and I have, and it hurts. It's like a bad breakup, and then you're like, I don't want to ever date again. And so, you know, the healing process is always going to be a work in progress, especially if you've had someone who hasn't healed yet from their own trauma. But now I think I just have more of a realization of why it happens.
There's an understanding.
And hopefully that lessens over time.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so back to you, Sarina. Why do you love covering sports?
Oh, it's so freaking weird. Like people cheer for these like athletes that do crazy crap with their bodies. I mean, records can be broken. People yell and they eat unhealthy food while watching these people who have like the best diets.
3% body fat.
Yes. And you're like, oh, cheese dog, oh, garlic fries. And this person's like hitting a home run that takes every ounce of their body possible to do so. The camaraderie of it, the teamwork, the coaches, the personalities that come out of like anybody. I mean, most athletes are expected to be these extroverted, like, look at me, I'm the center of attention. And as a reporter, I have learned early on, these men are very uncomfortable and shy, or women too. Or gender neutral, you know, like we're open to it all. Like I find though that athletes are very uncomfortable. There's like a handful, just as like there's a handful of people who could talk to a wall, you know what I mean? But outside of that, these guys have worked so hard to be the best in this job, which is working out, listening, getting instruction, reading the plays, Why would they be good at talking? Like that's such another skill. Like the number one fear in the world is public speaking. You want to be the best of this and then be good at that? Like, I'm sorry, Superman, like step aside. So I love that, especially because for me as a reporter and getting to get information from people who are like, I don't know what to say, or they're overly PR'd. I remember interviewing Serena Williams early on. She's one of my favorite athletes of all time. I freaking love her. I interviewed her at a time when I worked at Nike as an intern, and she remembered me. Serena, it was amazing. And I remember my first interview with her. I was so excited because I was talking to her as a fan. I was 23 years old, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to talk to Serena Williams. And I had all the questions written on my arm here because I was like sweating, and I was like, I'm going to forget, and I don't want to look unprofessional. So I asked her this question. I said, Serena Williams had these, you remember like back in the day, old school, the earrings, like the big jewelry. And I was like, how does this woman not hurt herself swinging a tennis racket, whacking her in the eye? So I asked her that question. And this woman was like, Serena Williams at that time was already top of her game. And she broke the PR'd, like, here is answer. Holy, she was like, oh, I gotta try out my earrings. I have to. She had a table of earrings laid out for her that she would put on a pair, try them out in her practice, and if they hit her, nope, not making the cut. And I'm like, it said so much more about her because I'm like, this woman is a perfectionist and she really cares about what she looks like because she's got to give a tryout for even her earrings. Like, that's wild to me, but it's worth finding the right earring to wear because this lady's got swag and perfection. And I loved her even more. But I broke Serena Williams' like PR'd like moment. And that was like the biggest victory of my entire life, I think, still. So
yeah, you got out of that canned answer.
Freaking love that. So that's why I love sports.
Well, you know what I love about Serena Celeste is back to when she was talking about being herself. So if you hear her here, you hear her on our platforms, which you need to tell us what all those are before you go. She's asking this question of Serena Williams because it genuinely interested her and had her perplexed. Like, how in the world do you do this? And because you are authentic to yourself, you ask that question. And I hope that people leave this listening to this interview thinking about that. Be yourself, because nobody else is going to think of it like you do. You bring a unique perspective to it, and you got her out of her canned answers, right? I can only is one day at a time, and pitch at a time. Stay within yourself. Like, I mean, I could just go on and on and on about the canned answers. So I love that about you. Good for you.
We had to take our hoop earrings off before we played anything. So I was like, how'd you get to do that?
But that was a process too. Like, you kind of took it off and tried to be intimidating. I know that too. Like, I remember like taking my stuff off them all, and then the rings, like, okay, we have to get my chain off. Yeah, here we go.
All right. With all this said, Serena, where can our audience find you?
Yes.
At these streets. Let's see. We got Instagram. I'm at Morales because my mom is a Colombian Morales and my dad's a Puerto Rican Morales. They're not related, but I am very proud of Morales. So we're at Morales on IG. On Twitter, at Serena. I was just one of the first people on Twitter. It's not like I traded it or bought it or whatever. I'm not paying for a blue check mark. So it's just at Serena, but I'm there. And those are really the two places. And then just, walking around the valley with Biggie, my dog. And
Biggie. Yeah. You'll see Serena with Biggie.
These streets. And I'm Valley Sports, obviously. You can find me there.
Honored to get time with you. Really honored. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Serena, so much for joining us. This was a great conversation. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Girl, How'd You Get That Gig with hosts Amy G and Celeste Gehring. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. The handle is @GirlGigPodcast. Followers and subscribers are automatically entered to win our giveaway prizes, announced every other Wednesday on our Instagram page. Until our next episode, go get that gig.